welcome to the Roads Weekly webinar. Today's topic is doing Blackberry builds and the Blackberry specifics of how to work with the different web browser that Blackberry uses. So the first thing we have done is we have installed the Roads source. You can also work from the gem. The process is very similar. And then we ran roads-setup. Once we did roads setup, it asked us several questions about our build and our locations, and then it refers us to go to our row build YAML file for the different SDKs. Because I'm using Blackberry SDK 6.0, I have that installed here. I want to also add a different version of the Blackberry SDK, so I'm going to go to my computer here and see where I have that installed. And if we look, I have three SDKs installed: 4.6.1, 4.7, and 6.0. So I'm going to add these to our row build YAML to allow us to build for these various platforms. So we'll just call this one 4.6, and then we'll put in the path to our JDE, which was 4.6.1. Our path to the Blackberry MDS, which is in the same folder, and then we have to pick which version simulator we want to run. So the way we figure out which ones are available, we go into the Blackberry JDE folder and go to the simulator. And there's a bunch of batch files with the device names. So it looks like this supports 8350i and 8900. So we will change this to 8900. Save that. So now we can build with 4.6 or 6.0. So what we're going to do now, let's see, I'm having a problem with GoToWebinar here. Just one moment. It looks like GoToWebinar is not going to cooperate today. So since we have this 8900 and the 9800, which is our Blackberry 6, now we can actually start working on our application. So we're going to go to our command prompt, and we're going to generate a store. So we'll say Rogen app, and we'll call this one our BB store. And it's going to do our generation here. We're going to Rogen app, or Rogen a model. We'll call this product. And we'll give it name, price, quantity, brand. So now we have an application generated with a model, very simple model. It's the exact same thing you do for any other roads application. The process is no different. Since we're using Windows today, I'm going to be using NetBeans as my IDE. Typically, I use TextMate in OS X and NetBeans for development in Windows. So we're going to add the project here to our NetBeans so we can see our application. So it's just going to be Ruby app, and we'll give it the path to our application. I think we call it store BB, or do we call it BB store? BB store. It's going to ask us to add our source folders. So we'll go ahead and select those. And it's gone ahead and generated us our NetBeans project. And we're going to just rename this so it's more clear here. Didn't take. So now what you see on the left is we have our BB store. It's still just the same Roads app. There's no difference. But one thing we want to notice is that there's these other files called index.bb.erb, and if you look at our product model, it has these products that are called edit.bb.erb index. Basically, there's a different view for the Blackberry than the other devices. So the reason why this is because BlackBerry's browser has very limited support for JavaScript, very limited support for CSS. So the views are typically very different than your views for more modern platforms based on WebKit that allow you to do better styling. And so a very good resource for that is if we go to Google here and we search for Blackberry 4.2 CSS. This very first link here, called the Blackberry Browser 4.2 Content Developers Guide, is exactly what we want. That's going to be it's a guide that has a lot of information about how the BlackBerry browsers work. So we'll actually go ahead and open that up now. I have downloaded that earlier. And we'll take a look at this BlackBerry developer guide. The developer guide here has two very good sections in it. There's the JavaScript language reference in it at the end, which says all the JavaScript that you're allowed to use on the BlackBerry device. It's a subset of JavaScript 1.5, and it lists all the classes available. There's examples, some BlackBerry specific ones for GPS. There's also the more general document model here, and you can see things that aren't supported, things that are read-only. DOM on BlackBerry is read-only, so if you're doing JavaScript, you can't really do XML HTTP requests and replace elements because you cannot write to the DOM. And overall, the JavaScript doesn't work very well, and you're very limited. But this developer's guide tells you exactly what you can do and what you can't do. It's very useful as a reference. The second part of this guide, which is probably even more important, is the CSS property list here. And let me make this a little bigger. So this covers 2 pages, and it lists the various elements and the various attributes that you can use on the CSS guides. For example, background image. It's only supported on body, and if we look here, table, TD, TH, and TRs. So basically what it's telling us is if you want to use background image, you have to use a table. And most modern web design uses divs. However, if you look in this CSS reference, you notice that div has very little support for all the different CSS properties. You can't set the borders on it, and you can't set a very significant amount of features, but you can with tables. So if we go back to our roads application, take a look at our index page, you notice we still have the generic divs, but since they're only containers, they're not styling elements, we don't need to have tables. But if you look at our lists, instead of our unordered list and list items, we now have a table with a row and a value. And this is where you would add the link. So we'll actually do that now. We'll give a link to our product controller. Save that file. Once we've done this, we can do the Blackberry build process. If we go to our application, just as if you're doing any other roads application, there's a rake task to build for Blackberry. If you do rake-t, you can see we have Blackberry, Android, Windows Mobile. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do rake run bb. So this is now taking our 4.6 device and building, and it usually takes a minute or two to compile. Blackberry is not one of the faster platforms when it comes to building, so you just need to wait for it to build the jars. If anyone has any questions at this point, now would be a great time to ask. Just post them in the question box. One question is, do we need MDS for the Blackberry app to work? Yes, you do, and it comes with the JDE by default. And you'll see when the application starts and loads in the emulator, it actually starts the MDS as well. Question is, which IDE do I like for Mac OS X? I use TextMate, which is a simple editor. So now we have our Blackberry simulator running. In our Blackberry simulator, it is put into our downloads folder. So if we open our downloads folder, we can see our app here. And it looks like the wrong app was loaded. I think my simulator was in a bad state. So Let's take a look. So we should be seeing BB Store. Where did BB Store go? So since I've been doing some development before, my Blackberry simulator is not quite working right. So one thing when this happens and things are a little bit weird on the simulator, that means that the state is sometimes off with the way the simulator is. So what we need to do is close that, and in the simulators folder there is a script called clean. This resets your Blackberry simulator and makes sure that everything is working properly. So if you're having weird issues with your simulator, where your simulator isn't starting properly, or your simulator doesn't have your device in it, various things like that, then you need to run the clean script, and the clean script will go and reset the simulator completely.